Hello, everyone. Welcome to Less of Me Success Stories. We're glad you've come and joined us tonight. While we're getting started, if you could please just take a moment to like and share and tell everyone on your socials that we are here and we are live. And then they can also join us and join our chat and our discussion in a little bit. I'm your host, Robyn Dobbins, and my co-host, Scott King, is here. He'll be running the chat tonight. So, hi, Scott.
Hey there, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Just want to let you guys know that Less of Me Success Stories was born from the desire of both Robyn and I to share inspirational stories of healing from our friends across the internet. We have had success healing our bodies, both mentally and physically, through our eating a range of low-carb diets. We are passionate about sharing this message of hope and hope to help others who are just embarking on their journey with low carb, and those who are already eating this way and just need some community support. We encourage interaction through the chat in hopes of helping all the other people on their path to a healthy lifestyle. And I totally read that, and I think I didn't do that bad. So, Robyn, back over to you.
All right. As a reminder, neither Scott or I or our guest are medical professionals. We're not offering medical advice. Um, if you have to change, if you have things that you want to change in your diet or do any other interventions, we highly recommend that you speak with your medical team before starting anything new. You may need to change prescriptions and things of that nature, and you need to definitely do that with a medical professional. With that, let's move on and introduce our guest. Tonight's guest is Jen Mendyka, and I believe I met her on Twitter like 2 years ago. I think that's how long she's been in the low carb community, and we connected, became friends, became accountability partners, and we've just kind of been alongside each other throughout this journey. She has to face a lot of adversity. She's got a crazy schedule that she has to deal with, plus all of the things that she manages at home and things that she manages with her work. And yet, still, she's been able to get off of all of her blood pressure medicine. She's been able to reverse her prediabetes, and she's been able to clear her psoriasis. And that's just three things that she's been able to do. There's so much more that she has done in this journey. She has set goals for herself and now has a passion for helping youth understand how to properly fuel their bodies. So, without further ado, Jen, welcome.
Thanks. I'm really thankful that you guys invited me here tonight. I'm so glad I could be on here to maybe give somebody a little bit of hope along the way. So I started, I don't know, my story's kind of long and winding. I've been heavy my whole life. When I left high school, I was almost 200 pounds and I just kept going from there. So I've been a heavy person as long as I can remember. And I always just kind of thought that it was my genes or it was just the way it was going to be. I have quite a few cousins who are heavy. My parents weren't really all that heavy, but I thought, well, it's got to be some family thing, right? And so I never really worried about it because I was always active. Like all through high school, I played sports, and even after high school, I was really active. So I thought, well, as long as I stay active, I'm exercising. It doesn't matter that I'm a fat person. It doesn't matter because I'm healthy and I'm active and I don't hurt. I'm good. And then I got older and I realized that being fat, being heavy was harming me. It wasn't just something that was in my genes. I really needed to look at what I was doing and figure out how to fix it. And that was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I've been through like not Weight Watchers, but a similar program to Weight Watchers. I've been through various other diet programs that I tried and none of them worked. They all centered around, calorie restriction. You can have whatever you want. You just can't have much of it. And it just never worked for me because I would end up restricting, and then just eating everything in sight, or just giving up because I felt like nothing was changing anyway. It's like I restricted, and over the course of 6 months, I lost 2 pounds. Yay. I'm at 300 pounds, 2 pounds is disheartening after 6 months of trying to do a weight loss program. So I had given up on weight loss. I thought, well, I'm just going to have to be fat and miserable and whatever. And then I met my husband, and he is a type 2 diabetic. And we got married, and I thought, if nothing else, I need to learn about diabetes so I can help him manage his diabetes. So I started reading everything I could find about how to manage diabetes, because I knew that, he was taking a lot of insulin, and it was, it's expensive. And I thought there has to be a way to not have to take so much medicine. And so I started out I found Jason Fung, his diabetes code book. And so I read that, and it was just like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I'd never heard anybody really talk about carb restriction. You hear people talk about, oh, I don't eat bread, I don't eat whatever, but nobody ever explained why they didn't eat bread. And so it was my first introduction to keto, and my first introduction to using food to reverse illness. And so I'm one of those people that if I'm not learning, I'm not breathing. So I have to seek out information about anything that piques my interest. I'm always reading something, always watching something, always learning something. That's my nature. I'm just this really inquisitive person. And so I found Vinnie Tortorich's documentary, Fat, a documentary. And I watched that, and I was like, wow, this really makes sense. Like, there's really information in here that just resonates with me. It's like, this sounds plausible, like not just plausible, but like it really clicked with me. I felt like I started to really understand why food was not working for me, because I was eating all the wrong stuff, like lots of processed stuff. I was a single mom for quite a few years. So it was always like the cheapest thing you could find, and the cheapest, like what's the quickest, cheapest thing, because we have 30 minutes for supper and then we're off to Cub Scouts or swim team or whatever we had going on. And so watching that documentary really started opening my eyes. And so I was starting to push our family into a keto world, but it was still a lot of like substitution foods, you can make cake, but you just use this instead. And, oh, you can make bread, but just use this instead. And so I was doing a lot of that, and it still wasn't working for me. I wasn't losing any weight. At my heaviest, I was 398 pounds. I was so close to 400. It was frightening. And it was disheartening, because I felt like I was doing things that were really helping my husband. He stopped having to take a lot of insulin. He had gone down way, way far on his insulin. And so I knew I was helping him, but I felt like it wasn't really doing anything for me. And then in December of 21, I was working a job that I was doing a lot of filing. And so I started listening to audiobooks, because filing can be really boring. So I found Fitness Confidential, Vinnie's book, and I had seen the documentary. So I was like, oh, I've heard of this guy. This could be a good book. And I listened to that book, and it was my light bulb, my aha moment. I just went, oh, yeah, this really makes sense. Like, if you're metabolically broken, which I obviously was, because by this time I had, was on high blood pressure medication, and I had been told I was pre-diabetic. And so it was really an aha. It was like, oh, I really could change my health. I could change my life if I really just buy into what he's saying here, which is not some crazy thing. I mean, it's people look at you when you say you don't eat sugars and grains and they're like, what's wrong with you? But really, if you look at what he's saying and what the NSNG was all about was eat real food, eat meat and vegetables and healthy fats. And that's not crazy at all in the big scheme of things, but it just feels crazy when you come from the world of everything comes out of a box, you know? So that really started my journey. I started kind of thinking, okay, this is how we need to go. And I started kind of maneuvering my family that way. I joined the Facebook group and started asking a lot of questions and learning a lot of things, but I hadn't really jumped in the pool. I was still just kind of dipping my toe in, wasn't really participating in the Facebook group. I was just trying to absorb as much as possible. And then I watched some videos that somebody had talked about on there from Dr. Ken Berry. And he was kind of the push in. He was talking about the BB, and E challenge, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And he talked about, really changing how you eat and how it would change you. And I thought, I've tried all these other crazy things. I'm at this point, I was about 380. So I was still like, I'd come down a little bit, but not really significant over the, the year and a half that I'd been trying. And so I thought, all it can do is not work like everything else. So I told myself I would give it 30 days of like really strict carnivore. Like I wasn't going to eat anything else. I wasn't going to eat, no more vegetables, no more substitutes, no more whatever. Just I was going to do the carnivore for 30 days. And so I started May 10th of 2022 with that. I'm just going to go all in carnivore for 30 days. And by the second week, I was amazed. I had lost like 20 pounds. And I know now that a lot of that was, the water weight, the inflammation coming off me and all of that just resolving. But it was just like shocking to me that I wasn't starving myself and I was getting results. And so I thought, well, I'm definitely doing this for 30 days. And then after 30 days, I thought, well, I'll do it another 30. So I did it for another 30 days. And then life got in the way. And I was like, well, it's been working really good. So I don't have to be as strict. And then, so I've been doing the roller coaster because I've learned in myself that I am a total sugar addict and that that's a wagon that's pretty easy to fall off of if I'm not very, very vigilant about it. And my work life makes that hard sometimes. So my job for the last, for a while, as Robyn knows, and some other people know, over the last year and a half, maybe almost 2 years, I've had my schedule change 9 times. And not just like, oh, you're coming in from at 9 instead of 8. It was, you work 3:30 to midnight. Oh, now you're going to work 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Oh, now you're back on 3:30 to midnight. Here, we're going to give you this weird 1:30 to like 10 or something schedule. Now you're back on 3:30 to midnight. Oh, no, we need you 8 to 4:30. And now I'm back on 3:30 to midnight. So it's been this like whiplash of craziness. And it's made it very, very difficult to stay on track. I've learned that your sleep has so much to do with weight loss and cravings that you wouldn't even believe it. I had to really live it to understand how much impact poor sleep has on your body. I'd suffered from insomnia in my 30s, and I didn't realize how hard that was on my body until I got in my 40s and did the stupid schedule that forced me to basically have insomnia sometimes. And so the last probably year, I've really tried to focus on getting good sleep, but it's been hard because over the past year, my schedule's changed like 4 times. So, but I've learned a lot about that too. Magnesium has become my best friend, but not any magnesium. It has to be like a good quality. I'm learning so much about like the quality of your supplements has a big impact too, because you can think you're doing something good and it's really just wasting money. And then stress. Stress is a monster. It really is. So just the stress of changing my schedule all the time was hard, but I also have stress at home. My husband has dementia. He's early onset dementia, and he's still independent enough that I can work and not have to worry too much about him at home, but it makes life stressful when you have to care for someone. And it's not just like well, we're going to get you over this and then you'll be healthy again. This is always going to be there. So, sorry. It just makes it hard.
Okay. I know.
Sorry, I didn't think that was going to hit me like that.
It's okay. We allow that here.
But, it's so there's just a lot of challenges, and people face challenges in life. And, I'm not unique in that at all. But you have to learn, and I had to learn, that I really had to put my health first sometimes. And that's been a hard one because I've always been the do things for everybody person. And so learning that I had to step up and say, no, I can't change my schedule again, or if I'm going to change my schedule again, it's because it's what I need, not what somebody else needs from me. Because that was part of my schedule change. Like craziness was, hey, we really need you to do this position. We really need you to help us out. Okay, yeah, I'll help you out. I'll switch my schedule. I'll change things up and I really had to learn that while I was helping others by doing that, I was really causing myself a lot more problems. It made things really hard for me. So I've had to learn that I need to be more focused on myself, which is really hard because it feels very selfish. So that's another thing I have to work through is it's not selfish to care about yourself, and it's not selfish to work on your own health. It's not selfish to focus on your needs, as long as that's not, your exclusive focus. I mean, obviously it's not mine because I still do care for my husband and keep our household. We have between the two of us, we have 5 kids. They're all out of the house, so we're empty nesters, but because I'm insane, we just got a puppy. Because what says no sleep like a puppy? So it's just, I don't know, there's just a lot to unpack there, and hopefully I got through some of that. Everybody followed along.
Yeah, definitely followed along. While we open up the chat for questions, I want to go back. I mean, there's so much, but I'm going to go back to you said you've been learning how to prioritize sleep, and that definitely falls under the category of taking the time for yourself, which is also another thing I want to touch on. But what other things have you done to prioritize your sleep?
So at first it was, so I have a sleep mask. because, I don't get home from work until about between 12:30 and 1 a.m., depending on the craziness of the night and the roads on the way home, because it's a 12-mile drive, but it's in the middle of nowhere. I live in the middle of nowhere. So like right now it's snowing. It'll probably, what is in good weather, a 15-minute drive will probably take me 30 minutes. So I get home, I spend some time relaxing. My husband always stays up, and he's up when I get home. So because he doesn't work so outside the home, so he follows my schedule. And so we relax and sometimes watch a little TV or just, hang out and visit and whatever. I wear a sleep mask to bed. I take magnesium to help me with sleep. I have a sound machine that I use because I found that it's not as hard to get to sleep, but it's hard to stay asleep. I can go to sleep pretty easy, but I have a tendency not to sleep long. And then once I wake up, then I'm awake, and then I can't nap. It's really hard. So I've had to learn how to get myself to sleep longer. So the magnesium has really helped. Having a sound machine has really helped because, if I have a good night's sleep, I don't get up until 10 a.m. or later. And by 10 a.m., there's a lot of world activity going on, and it gets noisy. And so I found that the sound machine has helped me not hear all the outside noises so much. So it helps me sleep longer. I don't have my phone in my bedroom. I've banished my cell phone. It lives in the living room overnight. And that has helped a lot too, not having the phone there.
I love all of those suggestions. I actually had to learn how to sleep. So that's part of my story. And I did all of the same things that you did. And that's worked out really well. But I will say, I don't know if you've tried it, but my white noise, it will just gently shut off. And then I don't have to wake up to like a beep, beep, beep alarm. And that has made a huge difference in my world, because if you're waking up to that blasting alarm, or like music comes on, or whatever that is, your first response when you wake up is a stress reaction. You're panicked. And instead my sound just gently turns off, and then I just gently wake up. My eyes just open, and I get up. So I'm throwing that out there to you, if your sound machine does that, because I tell you that in and of itself was a game changer for me. It's funny, if you wake up properly, your sleep, all those hours later, your sleep ends up going really well as well. So I love all those suggestions. I do all of the same things. Scott has raised his hand. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Because I don't have to get up at any specific time. I just let myself wake up naturally. I don't have any alarm whatsoever, because I don't work until 3:30 p.m. So whenever I wake up, I wake up. But when I was working and had to be up and at work by 8, that's how I was doing it, was to have, I had my clock actually had a light that would get brighter, and then the sound would come up on it, just like a nature sounds would come up on it, and it would, so it was like this gentle waking versus the screaming alarm clock. So, but now I don't need an alarm clock at all, because I just wake up whenever I wake up, which is nice.
That's an excellent feature. I wish I was there, but I still have to help get a kiddo to school. So I get that. So, all right, Scott, you said there was a question?
Yes, sir. I have some questions coming in, but I do want to butt in really quick and just say something, Jen. Appreciate it, first of all, you being very real. It's sometimes an emotional process that we thank you for being willing to do that for us. It's genuine, and it means a lot. You said something that really resonated with me, and how you said it's not selfish to work on ourselves. And me coming from a morbidly obese background, I understand what you're saying, because doing that our entire life, our self-worth is pretty much non-existent. And you get to a moment where you have to recognize and realize that, no, I am worth it, and I am worth investing time into it. And it's a hard thing for us to. I struggle with that idea, and I feel like you do too. Of is it narcissism or is it selfish? And I never want to be portrayed as that, but sometimes the most loving thing you could do for others is take your health and your life as a priority. So thank you so much for sharing that and hitting on that. So I'll get to my first question I have. That's from Kurt. He's our friend. But he said, how long was it between that light bulb aha moment you had to when you actually started taking action in this way of eating?
So the light bulb aha was when I listened to Fitness Confidential, and that was in December of 21. And I started trying to kind of implement, but like everything else, it was like, well, I'm going to ease into this. I'm going to try it out. And so I was dabbling in NSNG from December of 21 until May 10th of 22, when I said, no, I need to stop messing around. I either need to go all in or stop fiddling. I need to do something. And that's when I went really strict with myself. So that's when I started getting serious about it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I was slow to hit my mute. Apologize. Another question is from T. Nelson. What is Vinnie talks about your. Let me preface really quick, Vinnie, for those that might not be aware. Vinnie is Vinnie Tortorich, the creator of NSNG, or No Sugar No Grains, who is what a lot of us follow, but not everybody will be following in the future episodes. But currently, right now, we're NSNGers. So Vinnie has talked many times on his show about your workouts. So could you tell us what a typical workout of yours looks like?
So sadly enough, workout is one of those areas I really struggle with being consistent with. And I don't know why. I think it's just a mental block that I have. When I'm on my game, which is not currently, unfortunately. So I do usually free weights because I can use the gym at work, but now that I'm back on nights, that's not very convenient. So I use free weights, and I do mostly, he has push pull, what he calls push pull. And so it's like I do curls and I don't even know what they're called. I'm like the worst person with exercise. I'm sorry. He showed me a routine. It was on a Saturday show. So I stick with that mostly. I also did a consult with him when I had the gym equipment, and he showed me some other stuff. But it's really simple stuff. It's stuff that if you watch his, I know he has a couple of videos out on his YouTube of just simple, like, these are what you should do. That's all I do when I do anything, which is, I know it's bad. I need to get better about that. But I do like stuff is just squats. I don't do anything crazy. I try to get my steps in, which I also fail at a lot because my job is weird. It really is. Like, some nights I'll have 12,000 steps, and then the next night I'm like saddled to my desk, and I'm lucky if I get 5,000 because I just can't get away from my desk for more than 5 minutes. I recently got a treadmill, trying to get better about that, but I'm not. I suck at being consistent with exercise. And that's one of those things that I really would like to fix this year. If anybody has great ideas on how to fix that, or wants to come like scream at me and tell me to get my butt on my treadmill, please feel free to do so, because I need some accountability in that area. So I'm sorry, I can't really answer your question about exercise because I don't do much. I don't do it well.
But you know what, Jen, you did say something. I'm sorry, Robyn, go ahead.
I was gonna actually asked you about your workout and if that was going well for you, because I know that it's something that you have struggled with in inconsistency. But you've made a goal for yourself. So how is that goal? You can, if you want to talk about it, how is that? Is it tabled, or are we still working on it?
No, I'm still committed to this goal, and we're gonna see how this turns out. So I've committed myself because I'm crazy. I've decided I'm gonna run a 5K this year,
You're
or
amongst the right people for that.
walk a 5K this year. We're gonna see how this turns out. But I decided I'm gonna do a 5K this year. Every year on the 4th of July, my hometown does a 5K, and I thought I could do that. I can totally do a 5K. So I've committed to doing that, and now I have to actually implement the get to the 5K part, which is why I got a treadmill that hasn't got as much use as it should so far. So yeah, hopefully, I guess we'll see. July 4th, I'll either have accomplished it or will have completely failed at my goal. So we'll know by then. But I'm hopeful that I can stay on track or get on track and accomplish that.
Oh, I just stepped all over you, Scott, again. I'm sorry.
Go for it. Go for it.
That's kind of how we've connected, I believe, is that we've helped each other out with this goal of doing exercises. So I'm just throwing that out there to you again, and to anyone else that's on our channel watching right now, or who will listen to us later, is that you can find all of us on X, and all of us are willing to be accountability partners. So if you have a goal and you need somebody to chase after you, then we're here for each other in that manner. And that's important to me because it helps me out also, because I have these silly things going on too, and I need somebody to be like, hey, are you doing your thing? So I just wanted to throw that out there.
I think that goes back to the feeling like caring about myself is selfish thing, because I'm like, nobody has time to worry about whether I've exercised or not. They don't give a crap. I mean, they have their own lives. They don't care if I work out. But yeah, so I have trouble with that part, being like, hey, can you yell at me if I haven't worked out today? So if anybody wants to, go ahead, yell at me if you haven't worked out. Be like, Jen, did you work out? No, get over there and work out. So
all right, so I just wanted to bring up something in the chat. My friend Nick, from actually on the chat here, is a childhood friend of mine, and he brought up a great point. He said 6,500 steps is about a 5K. So you got this. You can do this. You're already putting it in when you put it in that perspective. But I did have another question from Jody Ross. What was or is your most surprising non-scale victory you've had since doing this?
Oh, wow. There have been so many of them. I've had so many non-scale victories that it's hard to keep track. I guess the one that I thought was the weirdest is that my shoes fit better. Oh, my shoes are now they're now too big. I'm like, my shoes are too big. I don't wear the same size of shoe anymore. That one was weird. That really took me by surprise when I put my shoes on, and I'm like, did I lace them wrong? No, they just fit bigger now. So that was a weird one.
That is such a weird thing. I'm right there with you. I have a pair of Doc Marten boots. I'm the last person that wears Doc Marten boots, and I'm so much to the point. I stretched the leather out so bad I can't. Now the leather's meeting each other, and there's just nothing else I could do. So it is weird. You're kind of like, why am I losing weight in my feet? Can I lose it somewhere else? I wish I could pick and choose where it's going, but I mean from your feet. But hey, take whatever you can get, right?
Yeah. It's like, okay, now my feet are skinny, but can the rest of me catch up? Yeah, so that one was definitely the weirdest, but it was nice when my skin cleared up. That one was really, and that one I lose really quick if I overindulge. So if I fall off the wagon and start eating sugar, everybody knows because it shows up on my face. That's where my psoriasis is. And so it's like, oh, hi, Jen. stop eating sugar. You know, my husband is always like, hey, what's going on with your face? What'd you eat? I'm like, busted, you know? So I guess that's one way to stay accountable, is having your face break out whenever you eat sugar. So makes it easy for somebody to call you out.
Nick has another question. And you kind of hit on it with the 5K, but I kind of had a question about this as well. So I'll just morph this question together. Do you have any, he's asking weekly, monthly, short-term, long-term, any goals? And I was going to ask you, do you have like a grand dream goal? And if you do you want to discuss that? And do you have a attack plan on how to accomplish this?
Are you talking specifically the 5K? Or
That, I mean, that
because
could be
that's
your
my
goal, or that is your goal.
have anything
Yeah.
bigger than that right now. I figured that was
Right.
biting off enough.
And that's a great goal.
So I looked up some couch to 5K things because I'm like, okay. So I say I was an athlete in high school. I played basketball, I played volleyball, I rodeoed. I did not run. When I did track in junior high, I did shot put and discus, and we weren't required to run, which is why I chose those two. Because I've never found running to be enjoyable, but I've always been heavy, right? So, and then I don't know why I've decided on a 5K. Like I said, it's kind of crazy because it's not like, oh, you know, I always liked running, I should do that again. That was never me. But I'm like, I want something tangible. I want something that I can, like, really, I needed something, a goal that I had to work towards. I is what really kind of prompted this, because this, I'm just going to exercise and get healthy has not really been motivating for me. And so I thought, well, if I say, hey, I'm going to do a 5K, I'm going to have to do things to get there. So I looked up some couch to 5Ks, and then of course they all assume that you either want to run a 5K in like 6 weeks, or you're a normal weight and want to run a 5K. And so I took that premise and I kind of played out my own thing. So I'm working myself up to like 30 minutes sustained walking, like a 30-minute walk every day. And then I'll work myself up to like an hour of walking every day. And then I will start implementing like short bursts of jogging. And I've done some of that. Like I was doing really good over Christmas break because none of our students were here. I work in a residential facility that does trade training for students. And all of our students were on break. And so it was just staff, and we were doing a lot of cleaning and stuff. And so I actually was jogging in my hallway. You know, I would do, like, I was walking, getting my steps in, and I would do little bursts of jogging. And I was like, hey, I can do this. And then all the students came back, and I've stopped doing that again. So I have to get myself in gear. But so that's my plan, is to just do sustained walking and then start implementing more chunks of jogging during that, and then making the jogging longer and just working myself up to jogging for a sustained amount of time. So I'm going pretty slow at it, probably too slow at it, but I also don't want to hurt myself. I have a knee that, from my past life of rodeoing, I have a bone chip in my knee. And so it normally doesn't cause any problems. And actually I've had way fewer problems since going NSNG. Like, I don't have near as much inflammation in that knee, and it used to be weather changes. Like, we had this storm roll in. It used to be just painful and horrible. And I didn't even know the weather was changing this time because my knee didn't hurt at all, which is a nice non-scale victory too. So I don't want to hurt myself. So I'm trying to go slow enough that I don't hurt myself, but yet push enough that I can accomplish the goal.
First off, I got to say, anyone that starts off with saying, when I used to rodeo, is way up here on awesome. That's just like a cool factor that I will never have, and I wish I could. But second is, I'm sure Vinnie has told you, or you might have heard, just remember, it's great advice. Go slow and go a little bit slower. That's just the greatest tip he's ever given me, along with like zone 2 training. It could be frustrating at first, but it's scientifically proven to minimize injury, but also your endurance. And that's where that go slow and then go slow again that comes from. It's the most frustrating thing when I started getting back into working out and cardio. I was doing more walking than anything, and now I'm like doing my best longest distances now because it builds up. So you're on the right path. We don't have to go crazy. Just do what works for you. But that's a great encouragement about what you're doing. So thanks for sharing that.
So I want to go back to your initial talk, and you've talked about a couple things that I want to dive into a little more. But first of all, you talked about your husband and his diabetes, and then of course now his dementia. How are you still doing the keto stuff with him, or is he doing an NSNG carnivore lifestyle along with you? And also, I know that you listen to Fitness Confidential, so I'm sure you've heard of Dr. Mary Newport and the information that she's putting out there for Alzheimer's. Have you been able to follow any of that and try to implement any of that for him?
So he does eat mostly like me, but he also eats a lot of junk. I will, and I push him as far as I can, but he's his own person. He can eat what he wants. But he does eat mostly NSNG. He is probably more of a sugar addict than I am, though, because he has to have dessert every night, and it's never anything big, but he has to have that, like cookies or whatever, which makes it hard for me because there's always stuff in my house, and that's a hard thing when you're not doing it as a family. And I know there's a lot of us out there that aren't doing this as a family, that they're the only truly NSNG person in their house, and they get the others to come along with them as far as they can. And so he, like I said, his diabetes, he hasn't had to take insulin in probably 3 or 4 months. He's got a CGM, so he keeps pretty good track of it. His last A1C was 5.6. So he's managing his diabetes pretty well. Unfortunately, he didn't manage his diabetes for a really, really long time, and that's where his dementia, I'm pretty sure, is coming from. Because the days that are really, really bad days are usually days where he's had a lot of stuff that he shouldn't have. That isn't healthy for him. So a lot of sugar leads to really bad mental days for him. Unfortunately, he either hasn't recognized that yet or won't admit it to himself yet. Like I said, I push him as far as I can, but he is an adult. He can do what he wants, and all I can do is present him with information and hope that he jumps on the bandwagon. We did try the coconut oil, and he cannot tolerate that even in a very small amounts. He tried it, and after about 3 days, he was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And so unfortunately, we've let that one kind of go by the wayside because coconut oil and him don't get along. But really, I have found that when we really he really restricts his sugars down to basically nothing, he has a lot better days.
That's interesting. And I know for me, when I was taking coconut oil, it took me like 3 months to work up to an amount that I stuck to. So I can do a tablespoon. After that, it's a disaster, literally. So
Yeah.
we don't want that for him. That's another, just another thing that you don't want to contend with, I'm sure.
We were trying like really small amounts. I'm like, just take a little tiny bit once a day. And after, it was like, I think the amount he could tolerate would be maybe like a period on a piece of paper. Like he really can't. It was not doing fun things for him. So he gave up on it pretty quick.
Well, I hope there's a protocol out there that can help you with that, because I know that it's frustrating, and I know that it's hard being the person on the other side watching this happen. And I know you're doing the best you can, and I know I have hope for you and for him that he does eventually see that and starts to implement some sort of change. But just like everybody else, they have to find it themselves. So I'm gonna grant you some patience, and I know that that's a challenge. So, but moving on, um, I also want to know how your weight loss journey is going, because you kind of said some numbers throughout there, but you kind of stopped at, you started carnivore and it was working and you dropped 20 pounds, and then you may or may not still be doing carnivore. I don't know. So how is
So I
that going? And then are you still seeing results?
so I am, I would say about 90% carnivore. I do mostly meat, eggs, and cheese. Um, I've I really have to watch how much dairy I have, because dairy really stalls me. But I also have to drink coffee sometimes to focus at work, and I can't do black coffee. I've tried every which way I can. I've tried every roast out there trying to make it so I could tolerate black coffee, and I can't. So I have cream in my coffee, but I try to limit that to no more than one a night if I'm going to do coffee. So I just really have to watch dairy. But and then I work in a place where, like, right now I'm sitting in a break room at work. I took a couple of hours off, but I didn't leave because it didn't make sense to drive and come back. So I'm sitting in a break room and there's a donut box sitting right there, and there's a donut in there. I work with 16 to 24-year-old students. I run the student store, and it is stocked with nothing but chips and candy, and the only healthy thing in there was some Slim Jims. So I live in a world of crap food. I really do. And it makes it very hard not to fall off the wagon. It just is a constant struggle, because you have these students who their love language is offering you something. Hey miss, you want a candy bar? Here, have a Starburst, have a this. And so it's that fine line of taking something because you know that they genuinely care and want to give you something, and they don't have much to give, and so giving you a candy bar or a Starburst or whatever is what they have, and then like pocketing it and then passing it on to somebody else is what I try to do a lot of. But then you end up with that night where it feels like the world is falling in around your ears, because it's a residential program. Things get crazy sometimes. And you reach in your pocket and, hey, somebody gave you a mini Snickers. Well, guess what's going in your mouth, right? So it's a struggle to not go there. And I'm not successful at it a lot. So I feel like I haven't made the progress I should have. I've lost right around 70 pounds since May of 22. And so I really, really, really wanted to be under 300 by this point, but I'm not. I'm cycling around the same, like, 10 pounds, and it frustrates the heck out of me. And but like, I'm just under 330, so I'm at like 320. I've gotten as low as like 314, but I keep bouncing, and I know it's because I do really good, and then all of a sudden I'm off the rails, and it puts me back up, and then I have to start over again. And so so I'm right around 60, 70 pounds is my weight loss so far.
And that was just so very real, and I appreciate you saying that. You are definitely not alone in that struggle. I know people personally. I know people in our conversations on the interwebs. This is a very real addiction, and I've had people say, there was a candy in the cabinet that belonged to their spouse, and they're waking up in the middle of the night because it was screaming at them, and they just needed to go eat it and wouldn't stop screaming until they ate it. So this is very real, and there's something that you just through time will work through, and I have faith that you will work through this, and we're all here for you, and that's the important part. Where you had said you're trying to prioritize yourself, understand that all of us are also here to help you do that for yourself, because you're very important and you're very much worth that effort. So thank you so much for saying all that. I know that you can do this, and I, you're making my heart just I'm glad that I know you, Jen, because you're doing great things, and you sharing your story is really resonating with a lot of people. I know Scott said that there's another question, so we have about 10 minutes left, and let's remember Jen's at work, so I think this may be the last question before the last question. So
Yes.
take it away, Scott.
So yeah, I just wanted to say also, everybody on the chat was saying 70 pounds is a lot. That's nothing to frown at. That's incredible. So yeah, don't even attempt to sell yourself short on that. So Nick had a question. He was asking if you track calories or macros or anything like that, or if you just kind of follow the guidelines of NSNG.
I just try to follow the guidelines. I used to try to track, and it made me stressed out. Like it was just too, like, I felt like, I don't know how to say this, but it was like, I felt like if I didn't track, I was failing myself. But if I did track, it was like shameful seeing what I was doing. Right. It gave me so much anxiety and so much like, and I wasn't losing anything when I was tracking. Like because this was when I was doing keto. And so I would track everything, like religiously tracking how much exercise I had. I would track everything and was losing nothing. And I just felt like I was spending all this time showing myself how I couldn't manage, it's like, oh, you're doing all this stuff. Look how you suck, So when I started doing the carnivore, the BB&E thing in May, and I was just like, I'm just going to follow what Kim Berry says, eat until you're comfortably stuffed and go from there. That worked the best for me because it wasn't stressful. I wasn't focusing on how much I was eating. I was just eating until I felt like I'd had enough, and then I was fine. And so I find when I do that, I have better results. When I start trying to tinker with what I'm doing, because like Vinnie says, you're never smarter than when you're trying to justify your own bad behavior. That's me to a T. Like I can, but look, I only ate this and this and this, and so that means I can have that because it'll cancel. No, like just don't try to justify. Don't just eat what you're supposed to eat and go with that. That's what's been the easiest and the best for me to follow, because then I don't feel like I'm putting in a whole lot of work for nothing. If I just eat what I'm supposed to eat, it makes it easy.
We have one last question, and that's from Kurt. He asked if you happen to keep any NSNG options handy, or he called it, what is your NSNG crack that you have sitting there, or do you have something sitting there? Like for me, or for a lot of people, I use the example of the nut butters. They had that as an emergency snack to go to. So do you have anything that you have, and what would that be?
So I did for a long time have the nut butters in my office. I haven't lately because I haven't gotten any ordered, and I always think, hey, I need to order that, and then I don't. I try to always have the one benefit of where my office is. My office is right underneath one of the residence halls, and so it's like you would not believe how loud it is in my office, which is why I'm not doing this in my office, because all you'd hear is stomping. But right next to me is a break room. And so I have a full-size fridge in there, and I have my George Foreman grill. So I keep a steak in the fridge. And they're like, why is there a steak in this fridge? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's mine. And so now everybody's like, oh, Jen's steak is in the fridge. So I always have a steak in the fridge and then I also have like frozen burger patties in the freezer, because if I hit that point where I'm like, I have to eat something, I don't care that it's 10:30 at night and really I shouldn't be eating. Okay, it's almost 11. I'm going to go cook that steak and eat it and not eat whatever crap. So that's my go-to. I have a steak.
Nice. I love that. I want to read one comment and I will stop bugging you. From Carolyn R. It says, you've done so amazing and you truly do inspire me. I love that you're saying you're not starting over, you're starting from experience. That's awesome. That's great stuff. And I will zip it now.
Well, I was going to mention, Jen, because I guess you're not on YouTube as well. So I want you to go back and take a look at the comments, because people are saying very kind things and you need to see them. It's very important that you see them. So please go back and read all of these things. And you've got a great support group. I'm just telling you that now. So thank you. I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us, and being so real with us, because you really are resonating with all of us right now by sharing your story. And everyone who is watching, reach out to Jen. She's on X. That's where I see her the most. So I think that's probably, is that where you are the most? So reach out to Jen and help be a support for her, because we all need each other. We're all a community. We're all in this together. So I don't know if you know this, but I ask a question at the end for everybody to answer. So it's your turn, Jen. I hope you're ready for this. Although I feel like you've already answered it, but you get another shot. So if you have one piece of advice for someone who is just starting out on their journey, what would that advice be?
Keep it simple. It's really easy to get into the weeds with, worrying about your macros and worrying about substitutes and worrying about blah, 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 because I've been there too, trying to do all that stuff. Keep it simple. Eat real one ingredient foods. Eat until you're full. If you're still hungry, like if you eat and then like an hour later you're hungry, up your fat, and take your electrolytes like salt, potassium, magnesium. Those are a game changer. Just don't make it too hard, because that's what causes the failures. When you try to make it too hard, just keep it simple.
I love that and totally agree with you 100%. I often say that it's simple, and I don't mean that to say that it's not hard, because as you've discussed, it is hard to change your mind. But once you realize how simple those foods are that you can put together that can satiate you and keep you away from all of those other things, then the sky's the limit. I love it. I love all these answers. I'm glad we asked this question. So I appreciate everyone for being here and joining us tonight. And Jen, I appreciate you so much for coming on and sharing your story. We'll definitely keep in contact. And, we have plans on meeting someday. So let's keep that on the list. We talked about goals, and one of those is that we will meet in person one day. So I think that's a fantastic goal. Everyone for joining us in the chat and asking your questions. This show is not possible without your questions. So very much appreciate you being with us live, and appreciate you subscribing to our channel and helping us make this little dream of ours come true as we continue to go forward with this. I have some news, and that is that our schedules are kind of conflicting with what we had originally intended with our every other week. So we have to switch our every other week. but we don't want you guys to go 2 weeks without us. So we're going to have a bonus episode next week, and then we're going to go every other from there. So we'll keep you posted on what's going on next week, and can't wait to come back and do it again. Again, Jen, thank you so much. Oh, before we go, do you have any places where people can find you and reach out to you? I've already mentioned X, but anywhere else you want to plug?
I'm mostly on X. That's where I spend most of my social media time. I do exist on Facebook. You can reach me there if you're not an X person. That's really it. I guess I'm on Instagram, but once again, that's kind of an afterthought. I don't pay much attention to that either. So if you really want to get a hold of me, X is the place to be.
Yes, that's where things tend to happen in my world now too. So I totally get it. There's just too many places, and then social media is just nutty. I do want to mention one final thing that applies to Scott and I. We both happen to be affiliates for NSNG Foods for nut butters. We also happen to be affiliates for Pure Vitamin Club. Scott has a couple other things but both of us have our link tree in the YouTube description area. So if you want to choose one of us to order through, we would certainly appreciate it. And it's something new that we kind of started, and kind of fun to be able to say that we have those affiliations. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for being here and joining us. And for Scott and I, we will see you next week. Bye.